My name is Dr. Lena Wallace. I say it clearly, silently, in the stillness of my penthouse, as the early blue morning light folds itself over Lake Michigan. The city looks harmless from up here, orderly, calm, predictable. Exactly how I built my life, by design. No surprises, no mistakes, no past. But the past has a way of leaking through cracks you didn't realize were there. I move through my kitchen, the polished marble floor cold beneath my bare feet. My movements are precise, habit-shaped from years of forcing chaos out of my orbit. The espresso machine hums, releasing a sharp, comforting bitterness into the air. My black suit hangs on a velvet hanger in the dressing room, pressed to perfection. In exactly 53 minutes, I'm scheduled to lead a meeting determining whether a $500 million merger proceeds or collapses. Numbers bend to me. People bend to numbers. There is no room in my world for anything messy, uncalculated, or unpredictable. Which is why, for a moment, I don't react when my phone begins buzzing against the marble countertop. It isn't my secure work phone, the encrypted one that rarely leaves my office. It's my personal phone, the one that almost never rings. The sound cuts sharply through the silence, vibrating with a violence that feels almost intentional, like a trespasser kicking down a locked door. I glance down. The number on the screen is unfamiliar. Area code, Atlanta, Georgia. The place I erased. I press the silence button. A clean, simple motion. Order restored. But not for long. The phone lights up instantly. Same number. I silence it again. It rings again, and again. It becomes a rhythm, frantic, desperate, insistent, as if someone on the other end is clawing their way toward me. 5 missed calls, 7, 14, 20. I don't move. I just watch the numbers stack on the screen like data points in a case file I don't want to open. After the 20-second call, the buzzing stops. The silence returns, but it isn't comforting. It's hollow, stretched too thin. A silence that feels like the air right before a storm hits. Then, a single notification pops up. One new message, from the same Atlanta number. My chest tightens, not in fear, but in a cold, analytical anticipation I haven't felt in years. I hover my thumb over the screen. I can almost feel the weight of the past pressing from the other side of the glass. I unlock the phone. The message is just 2 lines, but it detonates something inside me. Amara, it's Mom. You have to come home. Your father is in big trouble. Amara. That name. A name I buried 15 years ago in the dirt behind a train station platform in Georgia. A name that belonged to a girl who slept on benches, counted pennies for food, and waited for parents who never returned. A girl who learned, painfully quickly, that no one was coming to save her. My grip tightens around the phone. The coldness that spreads through my body isn't shock. It isn't sadness. It is rage. Silent, methodical, razor-sharp rage. They left me. No. They abandoned me for sport. I can still see it clearly, like a photograph burned into the back of my mind. The way my mother laughed through the glass as the train doors closed, shouting, "Let's see how she finds her way home," as if it were a game, as if I were disposable, as if I couldn't hear them. I was 14. I never went back. I built a new life from the ashes they left behind, became a forensic accountant, a weapon forged in precision and truth, built a name, a reputation, a life so far removed from theirs it might as well be another planet. And now, 15 years later, they dare to summon me? Because they need something, because their empire is collapsing, because the consequences of their greed have finally found them. I inhale slow, deep, controlled. My heart doesn't race. My hands don't shake. This isn't fear. It's clarity. I pull the phone closer, reading the message again. Your father is in big trouble. Good. I place the device gently on the countertop as if it might shatter under too heavy a touch. The marble surface reflects the screen like a ghostly duplicate, a reminder of a name I no longer claim. I whisper again, under my breath. My name is Lena Wallace, not Amara, not theirs, not the child they threw away. I walk across the room, my steps echoing through the penthouse. Everything here is mine, earned, built, controlled, not given, never given. Another vibration breaks the silence, another message. I turn back. This time, the bubble on the screen is longer, rambling, frantic, my mother's tone bleeding through every word even without the sound of her voice. Please pick up. They're saying your father might be arrested today. We need your help. You're smart, you always were. You can fix this. Please, baby. Baby. The audacity would almost be amusing if it didn't make my throat tighten with old fury. They need me. They think I'm still that girl, the one desperate for affection, desperate to be wanted. They don't know who I've become. They don't know what I do for a living. They don't know they just handed me the knife. A soft buzz again. Another message. Are you there? Please, we don't have anyone else. Of course they don't. People like my parents never have anyone else. They surround themselves with power until it crumbles, and suddenly they remember the people they once discarded. I pick up the phone this time. Not to call back. Not yet. I stare at the message, then at the skyline outside my window. Chicago stretches wide and silent before me, the lake calm and blue, pretending to be peaceful. But peace is an illusion. Peace is just the quiet before truth tears everything apart. My life has been cold, calculated, orderly. But the past is a diseased root system. It spreads no matter how much you cut it back. And this morning, it broke through the concrete. I glance at the clock. 40 minutes until the merger meeting. I have never missed a meeting in my entire career. But today feels different. I set my coffee down. I turn off the espresso machine. I pick up my phone. The text bubble flashes again. Amara, please. That's when something shifts inside me. Not the defensiveness I've carried for years. Not the grief. Not the fear. Something darker. Something colder. A decision. I walk to my bedroom closet and slide open the drawer beneath my suits. Inside is a folder, thick, sealed, untouched for years. The only piece of my past I kept. A birth certificate, a faded school ID, a train ticket, a single photograph of me at age 6, smiling next to parents who stopped loving me long before they abandoned me. I place the folder on the bed. If they want Amara, they'll get her. But not the girl they left behind. They'll get the woman she became. The woman who exposes corruption for a living. The woman who dismantles multi-million-dollar empires with a single forensic report. The woman they taught never to trust anyone, not even them. My phone buzzes again, but this time I don't silence it. I let it ring. Because for the first time in 15 years, I'm going home. Not to save them, to finish what they started. Chicago looked different once the decision was made. Not because the skyline had changed, it hadn't, but because something inside me had. The air outside the airport felt softer, muted, like it couldn't quite reach me. I moved through the terminal with the same precision I used on balance sheets, but inside my chest, something heavy and old stirred like dust in an unused attic. My flight to Atlanta was almost empty. An early morning weekday departure, the kind business travelers took without thinking. I was not a business traveler today. I was something else. Something undefined. A ghost returning to the place of her death. As the plane ascended, Chicago shrinking into a mosaic of geometry and steel, I pressed my forehead lightly against the cold window. The clouds swallowed us. Silence thickened. For the first time in years, I allowed myself to think about Georgia, about the suffocating heat, the heavy magnolia air, the way the world there always felt too loud, too chaotic, too much like a punishment. My body remembered it before my mind did. Memory is a strange kind of gravity. It drags you back even when you resist. The pilot announced smooth air, the engines hummed on, and I closed my eyes. I didn't dream, not really, but flashes returned. disconnected, floating pieces of a childhood I left behind. A bench under a flickering station light, the sour smell of rusted metal, the taste of fear, sharp like copper on my tongue. My mother's laughter as the train doors slid shut. My father's amused face, as if the abandonment of a child were nothing more than a prank gone too far. Let's see how she finds her way home. I clenched my jaw. My nails dug half-moons into my palm. The flight attendant paused beside me, offering a bottle of water. I thanked her with a polite smile, my professional mask slipping effortlessly into place. No one here knew who I really was. No one knew that I wasn't simply returning home. I was returning to the site of a crime. Not theirs. Mine. The crime of surviving. When the plane touched down in Atlanta, the sun was already rising, stretching wide, sticky rays across the tarmac. Georgia sunlight has a different weight. Even through the airplane window, I felt it settle on my skin like a hand I didn't want. The airport smelled the same, humid, sweet, slightly stale. It hit me like a throat punch. I swallowed hard and walked faster. I rented a car. Black. Clean lines. No clutter. The opposite of everything I grew up in. The drive to my parents' house was longer than I remembered, winding through suburbs where the houses grew larger and larger until they became estates, those oversized architectural screams of wealth that try too hard to impress. I knew theirs would be worse. As I turned down the tree-lined road, my grip on the steering wheel tightened. My parents' mansion emerged at the end, white columns towering, ivy choking the edges, the once manicured lawn now uneven and thirsty. It looked exhausted. It looked guilty. It looked like a corpse of the empire they built on lies. I parked, but stayed in the car for a moment, the engine quieting beneath me. This was it, the house I ran from, the house that made me, and unmade me. After a long, steady breath, I stepped out. The heat wrapped around me instantly, thick and oppressive. My heels clicked sharply against the stone driveway. I walked toward the front door, each step deliberate, controlled, steady. The closer I came, the more my heartbeat slowed instead of sped. It was a strange calm, the kind you feel before dissecting something dangerous. I knocked once. The door opened too quickly. My mother stood there. She had aged, but not the way most people did. She hadn't softened or wrinkled into fragility. Her face looked stretched, thin, sharpened by fear and years of pretending she was still young. Her eyes flickered with something I recognized but had never seen directed toward me. Desperation. She began. Lena, I corrected, voice even. Her lips froze on the wrong name, like she'd bitten into something bitter. Then she forced a trembling smile. Of course. Lena, please, come in. She stepped back. I walked into the foyer and the past hit me like humidity. The marble floors were the same, cold and pretentious. The chandelier above me was the same, gaudy, too bright, the kind that made everything look artificial. But the house felt different, hollow, like a stage set after the actors had gone home. My mother hovered beside me, wringing her hands. That nervous gesture felt foreign. She had never once been nervous around me as a child. She had never been anything but confident, cruel, dismissive in a way that masqueraded as charm. Your father is upstairs, she said. He's not doing well. Not doing well. She meant panicking. She meant unraveling. She meant facing consequences he never believed he would face. Good. I walked deeper into the house. My footsteps echoed in the emptiness. Dust clung to corners. The furniture looked untouched for months. The air smelled faintly of mildew and failing air conditioning, nothing like the polished perfection I remembered. What happened to the staff? I asked, though my voice remained neutral. They quit, she murmured. All of them. Interesting. Why? I asked. Her throat tightened. People talk. They don't want to be associated with us. Ah. Fear spreads fast when the foundation starts cracking. She paused, glancing sideways at me. I'm glad you came. I wasn't sure you would. You called 22 times, I replied. You made it clear it was important. Her eyes flickered with something close to shame. We need you. I said nothing. Silence is a scalpel when used correctly. The quiet stretched long enough that she began to flounder. Your father didn't do anything wrong, she blurted. People misunderstand. I stopped walking, turned to her, met her eyes, and watched her flinch. I'm not here to hear excuses, I said calmly. Her mouth opened, then closed. Her mascara smudged slightly under her lower lashes. She suddenly looked small, weak, like someone who had forgotten how to wear her own arrogance. We reached the base of the stairs, the same staircase I had once run down as a child, the same railing I had gripped so tightly the day I left. 15 years hadn't erased the muscle memory. My hand almost reached for it today, but stopped an inch away. No, I wouldn't give the house that satisfaction. I'll go up alone, I said. My mother didn't argue. She just nodded, her shoulders sagging like a deflated balloon. I climbed slowly, deliberately. With each step, the air felt heavier. Not with nostalgia. No, nostalgia is warm. This was cold. A pressure behind my ribs, a childhood ghost pressing its fingers against my spine. When I reached the landing, I saw the master bedroom door cracked open. Amara? My father's voice, weak, uncertain. I stepped inside. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, hands trembling, face pale. The powerful real estate mogul who once controlled half the county now looked like a man who had just realized the ground beneath him was quicksand. His eyes widened when he saw me. Amara, he whispered. I didn't correct him this time. I simply stood still, letting him look at what he had lost, letting him wonder what I had become. For a long, heavy moment, neither of us spoke. Then, softly, almost politely, I said, "Tell me everything." The room breathed in. The house held its breath. The past watched from the shadows, and for the first time in 15 years, I was ready to listen, not to forgive, not to help, but to understand precisely how to dismantle the empire they built over my bones. My father didn't speak at first. He just stared at me, studying my face like it held the answer to a question he was terrified to ask. Perhaps he was looking for the girl he abandoned. Perhaps he was searching for forgiveness in eyes that had long since learned not to offer it. He found neither. I took a seat across from him, not beside him, not close enough to pretend intimacy, but far enough to remind him there was distance between us that no apology could ever bridge. The silence was thick, like dust caught in a sunbeam. When he finally broke it, his voice cracked around the edges. "They're saying I stole money," he said. "You know that isn't true." I didn't respond. Not yet. I wanted to hear how he'd spin the story. People like my father always believe their version is the only one that matters. He rubbed his hands together, fingers shaking. All these accusations, property fraud, inflated valuations, bribery, lies, all of them. Lies. The first lie was my parents pretending to love me. Everything after that was simply an echo. I folded my hands in my lap, calm, controlled, the opposite of him. "Show me the paperwork," I said. He blinked. "What?" "The documents, the numbers, the accounts. Show me everything." His brows knitted, confusion and fear intertwining. Why? Because numbers don't lie. Because people do. Because I've built a career on exposing the kind of corruption he swears he's innocent of. But I didn't say any of that. "I need to see what they have on you," I replied simply. My father let out a breath that shook. "Your mother said." You became an accountant. A forensic accountant. His reaction was brief but telling, a flicker of dread, a tightening of the jaw. He heard the word forensic and understood. Understood what I was capable of. Understood that the girl he left behind had grown teeth. He stood slowly. His legs trembled, like the weight of the truth was already crushing him. Wordlessly, he walked to the walk-in closet, not for clothes, but to open a small locked safe tucked behind his suits. His hands shook so violently, he dropped the key once, then twice. It took everything in me not to show how satisfying that was. To watch. Inside the safe were folders, thick ones, stuffed with papers, contracts, financial records, evidence, the kind that could save him or bury him. He carried the stack to the bed with the reverence of someone carrying a ticking bomb. "This is everything," he whispered. He didn't hand it to me. He pushed it toward me like a peace offering, a desperate attempt at redemption. I took the documents and sat on the edge of the room's chaise lounge, flipping the first folder open. And then I saw them, the numbers, the inconsistencies, the patterns. Fraud leaves fingerprints, irregular, messy, undeniable. And these pages were covered in them like bruises, inflated valuations on undeveloped land parcels, shell companies receiving payments for consulting fees. Transfers timed perfectly around tax audits. Cash flows that danced in circles, hiding their true origin. The deeper I looked, the darker it became. My father's handwriting appeared on several forms: signatures, approvals, authorizations. He tried to disguise the sloppiness with a flourish, but to me, it looked like guilt smeared across paper. He sat on the bed watching me, his breathing uneven. "Well?" he asked softly. I didn't look at him when I answered. "These numbers are damning." His grip on the comforter tightened. "So you think I did it?" "I think," I said coldly, "that the evidence says you did." His face crumpled, not into remorse, but into frustration, into fear, into self-preservation. "You always were dramatic," he snapped. "You think everything is black and white because you like numbers, but this isn't that simple." "No." I finally looked up at him. "It's not simple. It's criminal." He flinched. He opened his mouth to argue, to lecture, to rewrite reality, something he'd done to me countless times as a child. But the words caught in his throat because he knew that this time I had the power. A shift happened then, a subtle one. His posture changed. His eyes hardened, then softened, then broke entirely. He looked like a man searching for a lifeline. "You can fix this," he whispered. "You know you can." Fix. As if he hadn't broken me first. As if his empire collapsing was a tragedy and not justice finally arriving late, but certain. As if my childhood didn't matter compared to the value of his reputation. A laugh, small, humorless, escaped me. "Why do you think I would?" His eyes grew wet. Not tears, panic. "Because you're my daughter." The words hit something inside me, but not what he intended. I set the folder down, slowly, deliberately. Then I stood, smoothing my suit. "I stopped being your daughter," I said quietly, "the day you shut those train doors." Silence swallowed us whole. A silence 15 years overdue. I walked to the bedroom, window looking out at the sprawling estate I once believed was a kingdom. Now I saw it for what it was, a facade, a hollow monument built on other people's losses. "How much time do you have?" I asked without turning. He swallowed hard. "They said, an arrest warrant may already be filed." So the clock was already ticking. "What do you need from me?" I asked, still facing the window. "I need you to talk to the investigators," he said quickly. "Tell them the numbers aren't reliable. Tell them someone else might have—" "No." The word was soft but final. He froze. No? I turned slowly. I won't lie for you, I said. But I'll look deeper. I'll find the truth. Hope flickered in his expression, too fast, too fragile. But he didn't understand. The truth is a scalpel. It doesn't save without cutting first. As I gathered the folders into my arms, something cold settled in my chest. Not sadness, not satisfaction, but clarity. Forensic clarity. I walked to the door. "Where are you going?" he asked, voice breaking. "To see what else you're hiding," I replied. Because men like my father never tell the whole truth. They tell stories. They tell versions. They tell lies with clean edges. But the numbers tell everything, and I intended to follow every one of them, to the offshore accounts, to the shell corporations, to whatever dark corners he thought he could hide things in. I was going to uncover all of it, not for him, not for justice, but because the girl they abandoned deserved to know exactly what kind of monsters her parents really were. As I stepped back into the hallway, I paused. Then, without turning, I said, "When I'm done, you won't recognize the person who comes back." The floorboards creaked in the silence that followed. Neither did he. He didn't recognize her at all. The night after the confrontation at my brother-in-law's office never really ended. It stretched like a shadow across the next morning, clinging to me even as sunlight slid through the blinds. I woke up drenched in a cold sweat, my mind replaying his words over and over. "Either you give me that money, or your wife will regret it." Not a threat, a declaration, a line drawn in the sand. And what terrified me most wasn't his confidence. It was the terrifying realization that he believed he already owned every inch of fear inside me. I got up, hands trembling as I splashed water on my face. The reflection looking back at me was someone I barely recognized. Eyes sunken, jaw tight, shoulders tense, as if bracing for a blow that hadn't yet landed. A part of me wanted to break that mirror. Another part wanted to crawl inside it and disappear, but neither was an option. I had promised myself that I would not let him win, not this time, not ever again. The house that knew too much. When I stepped into the hallway, silence wrapped around me like a suffocating blanket. My wife, Maya, was asleep in the bedroom, unaware of the war that had already begun around her. I closed the door softly, pacing the living room like a man trapped in a shrinking cage. Every wall felt like it was listening. Every shadow felt like it was hiding something. I had lived in this house for years, but that morning was the first time I felt unwelcome inside my own home. My phone buzzed. One new message. My heart stuttered. For a second, I thought it was him again. But no, it was from an unknown number. "If he contacted you again, meet me tonight, 11:30 p.m. Don't tell anyone. Don't reply." No name, no hint, just a time and a warning. A normal person would have blocked the number. A wiser person would have ignored it. But I wasn't either of those, not anymore. My instincts whispered that this wasn't random. Someone out there knew what he was planning, and they were watching everything. The quiet before the shake. I spent the day pretending life was normal, trying to keep Maya from noticing the storm brewing under my skin. But she knew me too well. "Something happened yesterday," she said quietly, while pouring coffee. "You're walking like you're carrying bricks." I froze. "I'm just tired," I lied. She didn't believe me. Her eyes lingered a moment too long, soft but sharp, like she was trying to read the truth written behind my silence. "Whatever it is," she whispered, "don't deal with it alone." The weight of her voice nearly broke me, but how could I tell her the man who threatened me was her own brother? How could I explain that he didn't just want money, he wanted control? I kissed her forehead and left the kitchen without answering. The truth would destroy her. And I wasn't ready for destruction. Not yet, though. Meeting that changed everything. By the time the clock hit 11 p.m., my nerves were frayed. I grabbed my coat, slipped my phone into my pocket, and left the house without making a sound. The rendezvous point was an abandoned parking lot on the edge of town, the kind of place where secrets hardened and turned into consequences. Dark, windless, empty, almost. A black car waited in the corner, its headlights off, engine faintly humming. For 10 long seconds, nothing happened. Then the driver's door opened. A woman stepped out. Tall, dark coat, hood up, gloves on. Her presence carved itself into the night like a blade. "You came," she said. Her voice was low, controlled, like someone who had learned long ago how to hide fear inside discipline. "Who are you?" I asked. "Someone who knows exactly what your brother-in-law is planning." My chest tightened. "What do you want from me?" She stepped closer until I could see the reflection of the street lamp in her eyes. "I'm here to help you," she said. "But before I do, you need to understand that this didn't start yesterday. He's been planning this for months." A cold spike of dread pierced through me. "What do you mean?" She exhaled slowly. "He doesn't just want money," she whispered. "He wants everything you have, and he's willing to destroy anyone, including his own sister, to get it." The world tilted, my pulse staggered. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. She lifted her hood, revealing a face that looked carved from storms and sleepless nights. "Because," she said, "I used to work for him." The truth that shattered the floor under me. Her name was Elena, and the story she told rewrote everything I thought I knew. For months, maybe even years, he had been building files on me, my finances, my movements, my habits, my marriage. He wanted leverage. He wanted control. And most importantly, he wanted to crush the one man who could expose him. "He's not just after your money," Elena said. "He's laundering money through offshore accounts. If the wrong person finds out, he goes to prison for life. So he needed someone to take the fall." Me. He wanted me. My name, my accounts, my debts, my signatures. He wanted to bury me under the crimes he committed. "You were supposed to be his shield," she continued. "But something changed." "What?" "You stopped being predictable." The words hit me harder than I expected. Somewhere along the line, simply surviving had turned into resisting, and he wasn't used to being resisted. I leaned against a lamppost, my legs trembling. "So what do I do?" I whispered. Elena stepped closer, her expression steeled. "You don't run, you don't hide, and you don't give him money." "Then what?" "You fight back." My breath caught. "With what?" She opened her coat slightly, revealing a small flash drive attached to a metal chain. "With this," she said. "This contains evidence, enough to tear his world apart. But once you take it, you become part of a war you can't walk away from." The night swallowed her words whole. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just stared at that small device, an object too tiny to hold so much destruction. And yet, I reached out. My fingers closed around it. The instant I touched it, Elena's voice cut the silence like a blade. "From this moment on," she whispered, "your life is no longer the life you knew." A new kind of fear. When I finally got back home, it was past midnight. Maya was asleep, her breathing soft and steady. I stood in the dark doorway, clutching the flash drive in my fist, like a weapon I didn't know how to use yet. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something shift inside me. Not fear, not dread, something darker, heavier, sharper, determination. He thought I was weak. He thought I'd bend. He thought he could break me. He was wrong. Tomorrow I would take the first step. Tomorrow I would stop being hunted. Tomorrow I would become the one thing he never expected. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, Elena's voice echoed in the back of my mind. Calm, firm, almost too steady for the storm she had dragged me into. Once you take this, there's no going back. She was right, because when morning came, I could feel it. Something had changed. Not around me, but in me. I wasn't just a man trying to escape a threat anymore. I had become a man willing to confront the source of the threat. And fear, real fear, had finally learned to give me space. But the world outside didn't care about the shift in my spine. It was waiting, watching, calculating. The first sign. At 8:13 a.m., just after I left the house to take out the trash, I saw him. A man sitting in a gray sedan across the street. Engine off. Windows dark enough to hide his face, but not his silhouette. He wasn't wearing a uniform. He wasn't pretending to scroll on his phone. He wasn't doing anything except watching. Watching my house. Watching me. My throat tightened. I kept walking casually, trash bag swinging at my side, but my mind was sprinting faster than my steps. Could it be him? Could he already know? Had Elena been followed? Or worse, had she lied? But no. His stillness wasn't the stillness of a man hiding guilt. It was the stillness of someone waiting for orders. Someone hired. Someone sent. My brother-in-law didn't like to get his hands dirty. He liked to hire people whose hands were already stained. The silent message. I pretended not to notice the sedan and went back inside, closing the door slowly, quietly, like sealing the walls of a fortress. Maya was in the kitchen, frying eggs. She looked up with a smile that died instantly when she saw my expression. "What happened? You look like you saw a ghost." "I'm fine," I lied again. But this time she didn't let it slide. "No," she said softly, placing the spatula down. "You're hiding something. And whatever it is, it's crawling under your skin." I swallowed hard. If I told her the truth, I would drag her into a war she wasn't prepared for. If I kept lying, I would eventually lose her trust. Both choices felt fatal. "I'll tell you," I said finally. "Just not right now." She stared at me for a long moment, hurt flickering behind her eyes, but she nodded. "Whenever you're ready," she whispered. It stabbed deeper than any threat her brother had ever given me. The flash drive, that breathed. The moment she stepped outside to water the garden, I locked myself in my office and took out the flash drive. It was black, smooth, ordinary, but the weight of it felt unnatural, like it carried a pulse. Elena had said, "This drive contains everything: transactions, offshore accounts, the names he paid, the names he betrayed, and the names he plans to ruin next." My hands trembled as I plugged it into my laptop. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a single folder opened automatically. "Do not open unless you are ready." The text sat there like a challenge. I clicked. Immediately, a list of video files appeared, dozens of them, time-stamped, sorted, and labeled with names I recognized. Business partners, investors, politicians, even one international banker whose scandal had been on the news last year. It was bigger than money, bigger than blackmail, bigger than revenge. It was a web. And my brother-in-law was sitting right in the center of it. I opened a video. The screen filled with a grainy office room. And there he was, laughing, talking, counting money, discussing cleaning routes and safe channels and dead ends. My blood ran cold. This wasn't leverage. This was evidence of a criminal empire. And he had threatened me? No. He had underestimated me. And men like him never survived underestimating the wrong person. When the doorbell rang at 10:42 a.m., the doorbell shattered the silence. A sharp, loud sound, short, impatient. My heart dropped. Maya called out from the living room. "I'll get it." "No," I shouted, rushing forward. But I was too late. She had already opened the door, and standing on the other side was the man from the gray sedan, tall, broad shoulders, black jacket, hands tucked in his pockets like he owned the whole street. "Morning," he said with a polite smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Is your husband home?" Maya blinked, confused. "Yes, but—" "That's fine," he interrupted. "I'll speak to him directly." She stepped aside just as I reached the doorway. I positioned myself between them. "What do you want?" I asked. He smiled wider. "Your presence. That's all." "Who sent you?" He tilted his head slightly, like the question amused him. "You know who." The air thickened. "Tell him," I said slowly. "If he wants something from me, he can come himself." The man's smile disappeared. "He doesn't like it when people raise their tone," he said. "And he certainly doesn't like when people take things that don't belong to them." My stomach twisted. He knew. He knew about the flash drive. But how? Before I could respond, he leaned closer. "Whatever you think you're doing," he whispered, "you won't make it to the end of the week." Then he stepped back, raised 2 fingers in a lazy salute, and walked away. No rush, no fear, just confidence. Confidence backed by danger. The breaking point inside me. When he left, Maya grabbed my arm, her voice shaking. "What is going on? Who was that? Why is someone threatening you?" I closed my eyes. I had promised myself I wouldn't drag her into this, but this wasn't something I could shield her from anymore. "He's one of your brother's men," I said quietly. Her face went pale. "My brother?" "Maya," I whispered. "Your brother isn't the man you think he is, and he's planning something dangerous, something that might hurt both of us." She stumbled back a step, her hand on her mouth, eyes wide with disbelief. "What are you talking about? He's never—" "He threatened you," I said. "He threatened our lives." The silence that followed was the heaviest silence I had ever felt between us. A silence filled with betrayal, fear, confusion, and something else, realization. She wasn't naive. She had seen glimpses of her brother's temper, his greed, his manipulation, but she had always dismissed them as flaws, not signs. Now it was too late to ignore them. "Show me," she said finally, her voice trembling. "Show me what you found." I hesitated. "Please," she whispered. "I need to know." So I took her to my office, and I showed her everything. Every recording, every transaction, every lie, every crime. Her hands shook, her breath hitched, her eyes filled with tears she tried to wipe before they could fall. "That monster," she whispered. "He's not my brother. Not anymore." The decision that couldn't be undone. By evening, the atmosphere in our home had transformed from fear into something sharper, resolve. Maya stood beside me, eyes swollen but fierce. "What now?" she asked. "Now," I said, "we decide how far we're willing to go." She didn't even hesitate. "As far as it takes. He won't ruin our lives." I looked at her, truly looked at her, and realized something. I wasn't fighting alone anymore. The flash drive wasn't just evidence, it was a weapon. The man in the sedan wasn't just a warning. He was a countdown. And my brother-in-law wasn't just a threat. He was the enemy. I took a deep breath and whispered the words that marked the beginning of the real war. "Tomorrow, we strike first."